Agent Power Huddle is a daily jumpstart, giving you all the tools you need to create an amazing real estate career. Led by top experts in the field, you'll learn how to sell more houses in less time while creating the life you want. Welcome to the Agent Power Huddle.
So, as I mentioned, today is myself and Jeff Yonamine, and we are talking about 1031 exchanges. One, because it tends to be a topic that doesn't get brought up enough in our business, and the longer you start doing real estate, the more that you realize that transactions like this come up, and it's like, what is a 1031 exchange? And so I don't want to give you any misinformation. So I'm going to let Jeff actually share exactly what is a 1031 exchange and when we get to use it. And like I said, Jeff has 20 years in tax deferred exchanges. And so he has become my resource every single time. He has tremendous wealth of information, which is why I wanted to bring him on with all of us today. So Jeff, take it over.
Great. So welcome. Thank you very much, Katrina, for having me. And again, if you guys have any questions, this is our 25th anniversary as Exchange Resources. And a little bit of background about myself. I've been doing it since 1984 when we didn't have the delayed exchanges. So it's really easy now to do 1031 exchanges as before. So we're over 100 years old. So it's not something new that's generated in the tax code. It's been there for over 100 years. It's a transaction for your real estate investors to defer the capital gains tax by buying another like-kind property. So it has to be held for the productive use in the trade or business or for investment purposes. And that's where the benefit to you guys all come about, because you could sell them, right, the next property. So you're working on two deals simultaneously because you're selling and you're buying the replacement property. So you have a motivated buyer once you close on their sale property. So so the misconception is everybody says, oh, this is a tax-free exchange. It's not tax-free, it's tax-deferred, right? You're kicking the can down the road. So once you start exchanging, you're forever more tied to the hip to the IRS that you got to keep on exchanging when you sell, or else you're going to pay the taxes are all going to come due. So what we say in the industry is exchange, 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 and die. And the reason why we say that is because when you pass away or your investors pass away, all the beneficiaries get a what? Step up in basis to the fair market value at the time of death. So all of the investors' gain is wiped out. And so the beneficiaries could what? Turn around, sell the property, and pay no tax. And so that's the benefit for the beneficiaries. And that's why we say swap till you drop on the 1031 exchange. You just keep on exchanging.
Yeah, I've never heard that term before, and now I'm going to be using it all the time.
You tell your clients, or even die, swap till you drop. But that's what we say in the industry. And so there's something to be aware of, because you don't need a lot of investors. You just need a few to really make your business explode to the next level.
Okay, so let's talk about the types of properties that we can be for investment purposes.
Sure. The misconception is what? If you sell a rental property, you got to buy another rental property because that's like-kind, right? That's only one of the many things that you could buy. So as a real estate agent, whatever you could sell them except the primary residence or second family home that they can't if they don't rent it out, but everything is available to them to buy. So the type of property is irrelevant. So you could buy commercial, ag, you buy raw land, you could do retail, you could do apartments, you could go back to small units or a single family rental. But the business ops are not exchangeable anymore. So your businesses, if you want to buy Starbucks, if you want to buy a Rite Aid, you cannot buy the business, but you can buy the building, which they are your tenants in, which is considered a triple net lease, right? Those are the ones.
Oh.
So that's
So
why
you can't buy like a laundromat, the business, but if you were buying the building with it, then you could.
So we used to do optometry, dental. We used to do the trucking companies like Ryder and those guys, because a lot of the agents, we used to buy the Ryder trucks and then put their picture on it and say, hey, if you're ever moving, list with us because we got a free truck for you, right? To go move your stuff. Those guys stopped doing 1031 exchanges on their trucks because in 2018, Trump said, hey, businesses, you get 100% write-off on all your business machinery. And so that's why he said, you guys don't need to do exchanges anymore because you guys get 100% write-off. So that's why businesses were eliminated from the code.
Gotcha. Okay. That's great information. And then one of the things that always comes up is the timing as far as the period. Can you get an extension? All of those things. So can you explain about that?
Sure. The timing, the misconception is, oh, my exchange starts once I list the property, or my exchange starts when I get into contract and open up escrow. That's the myth. The actual time frame starts at the close of escrow. So they give you 180 days to complete the exchange, approximately 6 months. First 45 days is when you have to identify the potential replacement property they're going to buy. And there's basically 2 rules and an exception for the identification. You have first rule, 3 properties, first choice, second choice, third choice, unlimited in value. It could be 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. IRS doesn't care as long as they can buy the property. However, we need that list by midnight of the 45th day. And whatever's on that list, they must buy from their short list. So the benefit, again, to you as the agent, you have a motivated buyer because that 45 days is just a month and a half, and they got to find that replacement property. So it's like no fooling around. We got to make strong offers. We got to get this property because you should, as a good agent, get them into contract either at the end of the escrow period of the property they're selling or within that 45-day period. They shouldn't be not in contract outside of the 45 days. They should already be moving along because you guys are doing your job, finding the property, getting in the contract, and getting ready to close.
Yes. Now, what about in this time of low inventory when it's become a little bit more difficult to either not necessarily identify a property, but get offers accepted? Is there an option for an extension at all?
No extension, only if the IRS issues that extension. And typically they're for natural disasters or like COVID, right? We had COVID.
Okay.
We had extensions. The IRS says, hey, everybody's tied into the houses. Here's your extension. So we got a 4-month extension. And that's about the norm. So anything that comes along like that, if we have natural disasters, like we have hurricanes on the East Coast, and we had the atmospheric river on the West Coast, they gave us a little bit more time because of those flooding issues that always pop up. So just be aware, but you got to check the IRS's webpage because they're the ones that issue it. We're always checking it. And then we issue out to our clientele, whoever has properties or replacement properties that they're going to in those cities or those areas that they may qualify to get an extension. So they'll always check with the CPA to issue that extension.
Okay, great. Now, do you have to, well, I think you kind of went into this already as far as do you need to do an exchange on a rental property? So what are the correct questions to ask? So for instance, this came up for me personally with a client because they were renting the property, but they were renting the property to a family member. And they were not, and that family member wasn't paying rent during COVID. And we didn't find out until towards the end that because that family member wasn't paying rent, the owner wasn't filing losses on their taxes. So could you explain more about how that affected and how you were able to rectify that? So
yes, so we're always asking the client, is it a Schedule E property, right? Held for investment. So the IRS needs to know that this property is held for investment purposes in the productive use in the trade or business. So that's how the IRS looks at it. So if it's not on your Schedule E, then the IRS doesn't even know that this property is being held as investment, because you might be taking the property tax deduction on your Schedule A, right, where you can, because if you only have two properties, your primary and a rental, you could do both on your Schedule A, and which a lot of people do. So they go, oh, I'm not generating any income, but I still want to take that property tax write-off. They're going to throw it on the Schedule A. So that property is not being held for investment purposes. So the key factor is what? You're taking the depreciation, you're generating the income, whatever maintenance and everything, you're taking it on your Schedule E, showing that you're having that. So that's why the Schedule E is the important form that the tax person needs to be filling out for the client. Now, they're okay with going and holding that property, but it's not going to qualify for 1031 exchange treatment, because to the IRS, that is a second home that is not rented out. And all second homes that are never rented out are disqualified by the IRS, hands down. They said, nope, it's personal use. It's not investment property.
Yeah. So just so you guys know, luckily they did have a rental agreement on that property, so we were able to go back and amend the taxes in order for my client to be able to use that. So if any of you ever get into the situation, one, send them to your 1031 exchange expert immediately, right after you take that listing, just to make sure, and then they can direct them to their CPA if there's further information that they need. Okay, so the next question comes from another situation. So, do we need to exchange a triplex if you live in one of the units as your primary residence? So, I have another client, it's 3 siblings that own the property. One of the siblings lives in one of the units. So, this actually got pretty convoluted. So, Jeff, can you share a little bit about that one?
Sure, we'll do the easy one first, right? We got one owner. Let's say we have one owner, we have a triplex, he lives in one unit, and the other 2 are rented out. What does he get? Does he get primary residence on the whole property? Or does he have to do a 1030 exchange because part of it is rented out? He actually gets to do what? Both. He gets the primary residence exclusion on the one unit, 1/3 of the sale is going to be primary. He gets that to do his 250, right? Exclusion. The other 2 or 2/3 of the property or of the sales price has to be do what? 1031 exchange because of investment. So you split it. So now if that's your client, what do you got? You go find another primary residence, and then what? You go find another investment property. So you sell the triplex, you're dealing with what? 3 properties now that you got to be dealing with, right? The triplex, the sale, you buy a primary, and you buy an investment. So that's why one client will give you 3 deals. So that's why those are very, that's a missed market in today's market right now. Owner-occupied duplexes, triplexes, and fourplex are hot right now because they are selling, and the agents are saying, hey, I got to do both, right? And so they're getting more deals out of it. Now, if you have multiple owners, then it becomes more convoluted, as Katrina was saying, because now the question is that one person that's living in that one unit paying the other 2 owners rent? If the answer is no, then it's a second home to the other 2 guys, right? Because they're not taking any deductions or anything. They're just saying, oh yeah, go ahead. You can stay in the property for free, da-da-da-da. So it's a second home to them. So are they getting any income? They're really only getting income from what? The other 2 units. So only 2/3 for the other 2 guys. They could do 1030 exchange. They're going to pay taxes on what? The second home part. Right. They're going to have to pay taxes because it's not an investment to them. He's not paying them rent. So that's why very critical. But for the person that lives in the unit, he still gets to do both, right? Because he's the owner, he lives there, he gets his 250, and he also gets to do what? 1031 exchange for his interest in the other 2 units. So that's why if you're a silent owner, you got to double check and say, is this going to be 100% taxable because I'm just not taking any deductions and I'm not claiming it, showing to the IRS that this property is an investment to me, then you're going to get hit 100% tax, like these guys are going to get hit. So they should have gone back and said, hey, we need to show this property as an investment property to us.
Yep. A lot of lessons learned on that one. Okay. Which we just addressed if there's multiple owners on the property. And we actually went over this a little bit as well as far as like kind. Is there anything else you want to add to that as far as what like kind properties could be?
And so the other stuff that's popping up that is considered real are the trick questions on your licensee test, right? Whenever you go to take your test for the DREs, Department of Real Estate, they have little trick questions. And questions are like, what is considered real? Like in the state of California, they say water rights. Is water rights considered real property in the state of California? Yes. Is oil rights considered real property in the state of California? No, but it's considered real in Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Pennsylvania. So they can do an exchange from California, and if they buy the oil rights, and we have people doing it right now because oil's high, they could go buy that under a 1031 exchange because it's considered real in the state in which they buy it. So these are the little nuances that are picking up because of the market. So you could do that. Mm-hmm. Cell towers, right? That's the trick question. What is considered real? Leasehold interest, 30 years or more, including option. That's why when AT&T says, hey, Katrina, I want to put a tower in your backyard, and then you have a 99-year lease, and then you say, can I sell my tower rights and buy real estate? Because AT&T wants to buy it back.
Right.
So they're going to pay you $1 million. If it has 30 years or more, including options, it's considered real. And so you could sell it
what
back.
What about billboards?
Billboards are the same thing.
Okay.
Right? So when you have those electronic billboards, same thing. So these are the nuances that are coming up right now because of the market. But as soon as the market goes back to normal, they're all going to fall away by the wayside. And that's what's happening presently.
Gotcha. What about real estate investment trusts? That's the other thing, like REITs or...
Not REITs, but DSTs. That's the difference.
DSTs.
So Delaware Statutory Trust. They look like REITs. They smell like REITs. They're not REITs. They're closed-end funds. They only give a certain amount of properties. And once they generate all the investors that they need, they close it. And then no more investors, no more properties. And then you have to wait until that property sells by the sponsoring company in order to be kicked back out into the market. And you could do a 1031 exchange once they sell. However, very easy to get in, very hard to get out. So you have to be an accredited investor. So meaning $1 million net worth or more. And so typically you don't need this money. So that's why be very careful. What else is happening? You're going to see deferred sales trust. You're going to see monetized installment sales. Those are things you guys got to watch out for because the IRS is not keen on those right now, but people are, promoting those as a way to not pay taxes.
Right. Now, is there any way to be able to buy first and then sell, or do you have to wait until you sell?
Good question. So has everybody heard of the reverse exchange? Reverse exchanges are very popular today because of the limited inventory, right? They could go out and shop first to find the property that they want to buy and then sell what they need to sell. It's not about holding the money anymore. It's about holding a property. So we have to set this thing up about a month in advance because if they're buying with a 20% down and then they're going to get financing, the lender's not going to let us hold title to that property. So we have to take title to the property they're going to sell, right? So we hold on to that and then we instruct escrow to close on the purchase. Now they have 180 days to make sure they sell that property we're holding to complete the reverse exchange. So these are the nuances that are happening. And that's why we have to make sure the lender is okay on the purchase, because once they sell, all that cash is coming in first to pay them back for the down payment. And the second thing, the rest of the money has to pay down the principal balance of the new loan. And this is where the lenders don't like us, because we're coming in and we're dropping 2, 3, 4, 500,000, knocking down the principal balance. So you got to make sure that that underwriter on that loan is okay with it, because a lot of the builders that we're dealing with, because people want to get in there, buy the new home construction and then sell their property, they don't like us either, because we're coming in and we're wiping out their loans because we have so much cash. We got to put that cash back. Or what do they got to do? They got to do hybrid exchanges, but we still got to complete the reverse exchange, and then any excess, they could do the straightforward.
Okay. And then last question I have before we get to the questions from our participants. So I know that you can add to whatever funds that you get, but what are the rules around that as far as if you are buying a property that costs more than what your gains are?
Right. So the IRS doesn't care if you go up in value. Oh, and it's always based upon what? The sales price of the property you're selling. They want you to go laterally across from property to property. So all the net proceeds come over as the down.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Any loan that gets paid off, you need to get it equal to or greater amount of new debt. So that means greater, right? So you could always add more cash, or you could always add more debt, but you cannot put any cash in your pocket, or else it becomes what? Boot, right? You just pay taxes on that. So when I go searching on the internet for information, a lot of them say all you have to do is reinvest your gain, and that's all you have to do for a 1031 exchange. That's not true, right? So you got to buy value to value, because everything has to come over. Every 1031 exchange has 3 things: net proceeds, debt, replacement, and ownership. Keep the ownership the same from property to property.
Okay, fantastic. This has been amazing. I know that Lisa has some questions she put in the chat. Example, selling 4 properties and buying 1 larger like for like. Is that an option?
Yes, you can sell multiple properties. However, the exchange starts when the first property closes. You can always add property number 2, number 3, number 4, as long as you haven't purchased the replacement property, any replacement property. So that's why it's going to trigger. You can identify that one big one that you're going to be buying and have the other ones go in eventually to that. But I will make it contingent upon the last 2 closing to complete the purchase, right? So you got to think ahead, because if, let's say number 4 doesn't sell, but you want number 4 in, you need to kind of make that a contingency, because 1 and 2 and 3 will sell real quick. Number 4 won't, but you still want to get it in. If they say, hey, close or lose it, right? Then you're going to have to do a hybrid. You got to wrap number 4 as a reverse exchange into that 1 slot. Now it gets very expensive because you're doing a hybrid exchange. Those are going to be about $10,000, as opposed to doing just straightforward. Might cost you only like $2,000.
Gotcha. Okay. And then she had another question about solar farms. Is that possible to exchange into?
Through the real estate, but not the equipment, right? So that's why if it's movable, that's why that's not going to be considered the real property. So if you got the solar farm, you can buy the land in regards to that, but that business for the solars may not be exchangeable on that. Because we're having issues with the leases on top of the houses, right? Because it's just causing havoc. And so we're seeing, can we pay for it or not pay for it under the 1031 exchange? Because they want to buy it out. So that's why it has to be more considered like a fixture, right? It has to be with the property. And so that's why it has to be attached to a foundation, unmovable, right? And that's why the issue with the solar farms are questionable.
And if someone is exchanging multiple properties, do you guys give a discount for doing multiple transactions?
So typical exchange is 1-for-1. Okay. So our fee is $1,250, which includes the sale, the purchase, documents, wire transfers, setup of the exchange, and the trust account at the bank. Any additional property outside of this, either selling or buying, that's just an additional $350 per any additional property. So we give a discount for the multiples.
Okay. Very cool. Awesome. This has been amazing. Anyone have any other questions? See, Lisa just said a real solar farm, 10,000 panels, 30-year warranty on panels. Yeah, Lisa, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hi. So I have a question, Jeff. What if you're selling a property that's an investment property, but you're buying into one that is larger? The person that is selling it has a revocable living trust. The people that are buying it, including the person that is selling the property, are going on title. Is that a problem to have 4 people on title, even though you have the main person that is selling their property? Is it as long as they go on title that it wouldn't matter and the money is exchanged into the new property?
It's ownership of the property, right? So they got to own whatever they're investing. So if you got a $10 million piece of property that they're working on and he's selling $1 million, right? But it has to be all cash because if he's coming in, he has to own 10% of that $10 million piece of property, right? Because he's dropping $1 million in. So he could go tenants in common with the other owners, but he has to make sure that he covers his exchange for the $1 million, $2 million in that property. So if it was a $2 million piece and he's selling $1 million, he has to own 50%?
50%.
Right? And if it's a $10 million, he only has to own 10%, but if it's all cash. If he has debt, then now it becomes more cumbersome, right? So now you got to make sure he covers both aspects, right? The net proceeds and the debt. So if there's going to be debt on it, then he only gets 10%, right, of the 10 million, then he only has 10% of the debt. So does that cover? So you got to go back and see the dynamics of the sale to how it's going to fit into the purchase of whatever ratio that he's going to be buying. So you have to make sure all that kind of pans out. So the CPA is the one that needs to kind of check all the boxes and say, okay, because he has to own lateral or class. So he could be tenants in common with this trust, with that trust, with this individual, that individual, and that's fine.
I get it. Even if it's at percentages. So that's perfect. That's what I needed to know.
Yep. So you just
awesome.
You just split it up, right? However you want to do it. As long as it's an informal partnership, you're fine. Once you go formal, it's not fine. Because the partnership has to do it, right?
Yeah. This has been phenomenal information. Anyone else have any questions? We're just right at 8:30, so want to make sure we're respectful of your time. If you guys need any additional information, feel free to reach out to me directly. I have all of Jeff's contact information, so I can definitely send that out.
And if you have questions later on, call me. I don't charge anything. I just charge Katrina.
Yeah, Jeff, exactly. Jeff has been literally my godsend. He has helped me so much, and yeah, he is now my go-to for anything 1031 exchange. So I am going to put his number in the chat right now. And
we cover all 50 states. We have done exchanges in all 50 states, so it doesn't matter where you're at. You just can't do it international. You can only do US for US.
Yep. All righty. Well, thank you everyone so much, Jeff. Thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I can't thank you enough. Yeah, and I hope this was valuable to all of you. All right. Thanks. See you guys later.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.